Right guys, 2019 Ford Transit Custom Turbo. Yes, it is a pain. So what I'm going to do, we're going to do a video because we're doing it in roll reversal because we've already stripped it. Right, Tom's under there now, just sticking it back on. Turbo, for anybody who wants to know, right, it's at the back here. We've got it out a minute, one of the studs came out. We had to take off the DPF to do so. I'll say it's here, we're going to put it back on and you'll see it in reversal. ECU's out, because while ECU's out, we're going to get it, while DPF's off, we're going to get it knocked out and mapped out. Get rid of AdBlue as well so we don't need it. And it just causes dramas down the long run. So what we'll do now, we'll show you in reverse how this all goes back together. Stay tuned. Right guys, like I say, we're doing it in reverse. In here, we need room. You need room to get to the turbo. See the studs, oil feed pipe there, 8mm. 3 bolts on top of turbo, 2 this side, 1 at the far side, all 3 13mm. You cannot get this off without taking the DPF off. It is a nightmare. Also, when DPF was off, gear selector cables. Gear selector cables came from on top. You can just see the nipples over there. Get them out of the way as well to get room to get your DPF out, otherwise you're not going to be able to do it. You don't have to drop subframe off, just get it jacked up and then you'll have room to get it out. And there's also just 2 bolts there onto the back part of the exhaust. There's 3 bolts that hold your DPF in. We'll get some light in here so you can see. 1 there, 1 on top, and there's 1 on this bracket, you can see there. So there's 3 bolts that hold your DPF on. What I will tell you is, this top bolt, this one there, we did find out that actually had 2 nuts on it. So that was a real pain, because we thought why ain't it coming off, it was just pivoting on itself, because it actually had 2 13mm bolts on it. So yeah, so make sure you get both of them off. Yours might not have 2 on for some reason, ours did. Then it just comes out, drops it out. So like I say, we're doing this in roll reversal so you can see how the process goes on. We also dropped off the intercooler pipework, give it all that a clean up. Turbo had seized and it was full of oil, so you need to make sure all that's clean as well. Right, feed pipe. See on top, going into turbo, sorry I dropped light. That's a bit of a pain to get in. Turbo's just sat roughly in position. One thing to note, what Tom did tell me. What did you tell me, Tom? Before you put the turbo back in, get a syringe, fill the top of the turbo up with oil, so it's not dry when you're starting the van up for the first time, otherwise you will knacker your brand new turbo. So where that oil filled pipe now, what Tom's just screwing back in, which is a 13mm by the way, you literally just fill that up with oil and it'll seep down into the turbo, so it's got oil in it when we start it up. Right, so that oil feed pipe at the top on turbo has proven a pain. You had to get it lined up perfect for it for threads to go in, and it ain't doing it. So now we're going to come in and take the oil feed pipe from the block, take it out, put it into the turbo at the top and feed it back in. 2 8mm, highlighted on the video. Just literally 1 at the bottom and a clamp further up top, you can just see it there. So I'm going to do that now. But turbo's back off. See if it's not, you can see that it's just not quite lined up. You see it, turbo's back off now because that oil feed pipe, you can see it's not going in quite straight, so we need to straighten that up. I'm going to fix it up from this end and then drop it all back in, so it'll be a lot easier than trying to do it as in situ. Right, that's all back in now, you can see it's all tight. All return, all feed, all greased and lubed up, ready to go back in. Tom's going to drop it back onto the studs and then we can go underneath and start tightening things up. See it coming back into the studs now. Turbo's sitting back on the studs. Just going to have to sort these oil feed and oil drain pipes back out, get them in situ and then tighten it all down. Right, that's the oil feed and oil return pipe all back in and tightened up. I'll stick some arrows on the screen so you can see where they are. And then all 3 of them bolts there that are holding it on, all 8mm.
Alright, we can get the heat shield back on.
Yeah, just tightening them They're 13, let's say you've got 2 bolts this side. Stud on the right hand side, one came out with the nut, so that's going back in as a whole stud and a nut. The other 2, the studs were left in, so it's just a case of putting nuts back on. Tom's just putting intercooler pipe back on now, while we're waiting for other parts to come back. Literally two, there was a Jubilee clip on top, and then what is it, one outside, Tom?
110mm.
110mm down where Tom's left hand is, you can't really see, but and then obviously pipe connects at the bottom as well on a Jubilee onto intercooler, and we're putting intercooler back on there a bit, so that's quite simple. Heat shield time. All done by 3 bolts. Don't know if you can see them. T40s anyway. 3 T40s held on. So we'll stick this on now. Just going to show you putting this heat shield back in now. Where Tom's hand is, bolt up back there, one there, and there's obviously one up top. And like I said before, you need to get this heat shield off, or before you can take your turbo bolts off. And obviously there and there. And that's it, obviously. Once that's back on, you can't then tighten up your turbo bolts onto the manifold, so make sure you get them all nice and tight before you put your heat shield back on. Remember, we're doing this in reverse as well, so anybody who needs to know how to take it off, just watch the video and you'll see. Intercooler pipe going back on now, front end of turbo, Jubilee clip, feeds down over the top of the engine, all this heat shield area, and then down to here, which will join up onto the bottom of the intercooler later. Just get that back in place. Right, I hope you can see this. We're on about drop light. Intercooler pipe work that I'm just putting back in. There's 2 10mm that's on the front of it, right in front of the fan. Just get the light to it. Can you see them? I'll point them out with some arrows if not. They're right pain in arse, I'll be honest with you. Getting them back into pain. Getting them out wasn't too bad, but just thought I'd let you know that there's 2 10mm up front of that intercooler pipe work. Right, so DPF's back. All job nicely done. Definitely not being cut open and knocked out. We won't want to be doing that. Get this heat shield back on it. Get it back on the van. Right, just a bit of note. This, before I put DPF back on, obviously it's going to join onto under turbo here. This, I don't even what to call it, this sort of gasket ring, whatever, joins the turbo to the DPF. When it was on, you'd think that it would be that way. With a T20, well, it's a T25 that, by the way. It won. When it was on, it was in, facing away from us, and it was a proving a right pain. She couldn't get to the back of it to release that. So what I had to do, pair of mole grips on here, on the thread, and twist it off. Obviously it's away from you. Remember, you're doing it clockwise, turning clockwise away from your son. And that's how we released it to loosen it to get it off. So when we put it back on now, I'm going to orientate it so we can actually do it from this side, because it'll make life so much easier. I'm guessing they must have put it on the engine and dropped it in as a wanna, because surely no way anybody did it that way from factory. So just a bit of a tip for you there, lads. Right, now DPF's sort of in there. You can see AdBlue injector on top, and you see all on DPF. I need to sort of manipulate that back into position now, and then get things lined back up. Right, you can see there we've just got the DPF back situated. I'll put the arrows on the screen of where the bolts are. There's one obviously that's right obviously at the bottom, and then one on top at DPF. Don't know if you can make it out on the camera, it's a bit awkward to get to. Just roughly in place now while we get the top V-band on. And then we can go put the DPF in. I'll highlight that as well with an arrow. And then start putting all the connections back on. Gearbox selector, plug and play things, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so that's gear selector back on. I'll highlight in the video where they are. It's 2 13mm, one's a bolt, one's a nut, one's on left, one's on right, and then the gear selector topped. They just pry off, just pop them off, go to like that, get them behind them, and then see, like on that, underneath, pop it off, that one there, behind it, pop it off, and they just clip back on onto like ball joints. Right, next breather pipe, on here, and on there, that's just been put back in. You need to take that off. See, how do you get them off? Just pull them. Pull them off. obviously you need that off to get your intercooler pipe and that off, and then yeah, that's an easy fix. Right, with DPF, I say the third bolt, there's the third bolt, you can see it just at the end of the torch. I'll highlight it in the video, but that's just a 10mm, and it's an actual bolt that goes straight through, straight off Smith head, straight onto the side of the bracket of the DPF. That's pretty simple to get to that one. So again, there's three bolts that's holding the DPF in place. One there at 10, the other two are 13s, which I've highlighted earlier. Right, well, I have T's under there sticking heat shields back on. That's one thing I forgot to mention actually. You need to take the heat shield off as well to get the DPF out. It's a pain. I'm going to stick the ECU back on. I thought I'd just chuck this in the middle of the video anyway, just skip it if you want to. But it's a right pain to get out. There's all this wiring. It sits in there, I'll show you in a minute. But it's got this cover on it, an anti-tamper cover. So you can't get to these bolts to get them out because it's anti-tamper, they don't want you to remove them. So what I did, undid all the bolts, which you'll see in a minute when I put it back together, and then on this left hand side, drilled that out, and then you can bend it up, just bend it round, and it's slotted out from underneath. It's not going back in, it's not needed, get rid of it. Right, I'll stick ECU back in now. Right, now ECU's back in place, now I'll have talking a bit of a point where we're at. So you can see, I'll highlight it on video anyway, there's two bolts, two 10mm holding this bracket, this grey bracket here, down in place, which holds your ECU in place. So I'll put some arrows to them so you can see, they need to come out. Header bottle, move that, two bolts again, 1, 2, get rid of that, get it out of the way. And you've got all these clips to undo. One, looks like there's 1, 2, 3 into this section. One right at back, I took that out as well. And then there was 2 earthing cables, one earthing cable on top wing, and then an earthing cable just down below. I'll point out to again with an arrow. Once all that was moved, to be fair, it's not gone back in too bad, it's a piece of piss. The only problem is, it's just getting this, you've got to manipulate it out, because it's just wires are bent everywhere, and you need room. You need room to get that ECU out. Once all wires are out, header bottles out of the way and that, you want too bad to get out. Like I say, that thing at the bottom, which stops you taking ECU out, and a tamper plate, that's not going back in, it's not needed. Yeah, so that's the ECU back in. Right, intercooler time. I've just put it back in, it's a bit awkward to film and lift up at the same time, so I've set it on. You've got your two bolts there on that side, and then where T is, 2 bolts on that side. What we did was the radiator hold on to into that foot in there. There's one on the other side. So we tie wrapped the radiator up to keep it tension off so it's not dropping down. We removed all the plastics underneath, and then what you've got is this like wind cowling or whatever you want to call it. That's all in. 1, 2, 3, 4 of them holding up as well. So take them off, they just pull off. They're them plastic tabs where you use that special tool to take them off. And then once they're off, and then them 4 bolts are off. And then you've got your pipe work on underneath, pipe either side. Once they're off, the intercooler just drops out. You can take it away. Just a note, once we've secured that up, what I was telling you about them caps, what was there, they don't go back on. Once they're broke off, they broke off. So I'll just put 3 tech screws in, hold that cowling in place, and it's absolutely solid. It's better than that original stuff anyway, to be honest with you. So just note, you might need some tech screws to put that back in. Right, we're back. Job's done. Obviously, I'm going to put this one on first, and then the rest of the videos can follow afterwards. It's just air filter, oil to drop down now. But what I did is wanted to do a little recap, because obviously T was just saying, before you start doing anything, the best thing to do is underneath get that heat shield off around your DPF, gives you loads more room to work on. So before you do anything whatsoever, get that off. That's going to be #1 job, heat shield off, and it'll make life so much easier. Now to finish it off, get this done, get it back in action and see how it goes. Cheers. Alright lads, right, so I did another video outside, but it delayed for some reason, so I'm just going to do a recap inside. Now the video is in reversal. Obviously we started with the turbo off, and then we refitted the turbo, going step by step on the fitting process. Obviously if you wanted to strip it, you do it in reverse. And obviously, I'm guessing you're watching this video because you're having problems like same as we did. My turbo had seized. I stripped it off and replaced it. If anybody's interested, I did get the turbo from GSF, which is a car place, and it cost me £425, I believe. And you take your old turbo back and replace it with that. Whilst the DPF was off, got that knocked out, got the DPF EGR AdBlue delete, and it was also remapped from 132 to 186 brake horsepower, so it should give me more pulling power and some towing. Also, what I did realise after I spoke to somebody was the turbo is most likely seized in the first place due to the fact that the wet belt is on its way out, and as the wet belt starts breaking down, it starts clogging up the oil feed pipes up to the turbos. There's a sump plug in there, I believe, with the gauze over it that gets covered in debris, stops the oil soaking up and feeding the turbo, and it starves it of oil, and then it seizes, and that's why your turbo goes. So obviously at the end of the video then, what we did is we put the airbox back on. We didn't do a little video on that, but that's very easy. It's self-explanatory how to take the airbox off. We also did a full oil change and filter change. Now, I aren't going to drive the van again now until I've had the wet belt done. It's something I can't do myself, so I'm taking it to a garage, to a specialist to do. So I'm going to get the wet belt done. So it's at 93,000 miles, and to the best of my knowledge, it's never been done before. So once wet belt's done, turbo will be done, and that way, obviously, there's going to be no potential of starving the turbo of any oil again and knackering up a brand new turbo and having to go through all that process again. Like I say, lads, I ain't an expert. I just have a dabble, put my hands to things. But if you've got any questions, you want to know how to do anything, please put it in comments below. And if I know, I'll help you out and let you know how to do it. If I don't know, I'll ask my mate T. He's very knowledgeable and he knows his stuff. And if we don't know and anybody else does know, lads, just put it in comments, please, because we're making these videos just to help each other out, make life easy for each other. Do you know what I mean? So enjoy. And if you're watching this video, you're going to be doing your turbo. Be patient, do it, and save yourself some money, lads. Enjoy. Take care.